Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Welcome to another YouTube live stream here, the 343 podcast. I am your host. Gary Benny is not around today, so I'm going to be doing an experiment and doing a solo show with all of you. Let's see how this goes. Maybe it's a good format, maybe it's not. I've prepared a couple of slides to kind of prompt me and guide me as to, what I wanted to discuss with you all today. Hopefully it's rather smooth. I've slapped these slides together in a matter of 30 minutes. So you can imagine the quality. Don't be expecting some sort of massive post-production sort of thing here in any way, shape, or form. So yeah, let's have a good chat. I think that where I want to start out with is I want to prompt you guys to see if you can see the following shared screen on your screens. So just maybe give me a little thumbs up in the comments to see if you can actually see this thing or not. You should be seeing a video of me along with my shared screen there. What do we got? Affirmative? Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so please forgive me if there's any technical difficulties. We'll do our best. If the technical difficulties arise, F it. As Bill O'Reilly said famously 20, 30 years ago, we'll do it live. We'll do it live. So no scripting per usual. All right. So on the first screen, the first slide that I have up here, I titled it, Are Debates Stupid? And clearly I have an ex post here of Tactical Manager, a colleague of mine, somebody that I've developed a friendship with over the past several years in this sport that we call football. And look, over the course of the past several years, I've been hit up many a times to do quote unquote debates with people. Gary, come on my show. Let's do a debate. Or Gary, it'd be good if you invited so and so on 2343 and you guys can debate topic X, Y, or Z. And I've always declined those things because I strongly believe that debates in general are stupid. Okay, really, really dumb. And the reasons are as follows. I mean, they're not exhaustive, but I kind of jotted 4 bullet points down to remind me what I wanted to mention. The first one, the reason I agreed here to do Felipo's show is, again, I repeat, I have a longstanding relationship with him. I think he is a net positive for the ecosystem. He reached out, he wanted to do it, and I'm like, fine, let's do it. I asked, hey, who's going to be on the other side of the equation here? And he threw out some names. I didn't even recognize the names. I didn't even bother researching the names. I'm like, what's the point? Yeah, let's just go ahead and wing it and have a debate. So that's one reason. The other reason is I'd never done a debate before in my life. So I'm like, you know what? Why not? Let's give it a go. Let's do another little experiment and see what happens. So I encourage you to go to Tactical Manager's YouTube channel, give it a listen. I probably will not listen to it because I think it's dumb. I think all debates are dumb. And that takes me to my second bullet point here on polarization. So most all debates, insofar as my opinion is concerned, really only serve to further polarize positions. When you come into a debate as a spectator, you already kind of have your mind made up, your positions made up, your mental model and your worldview made up. And a 1-hour debate, a 30-minute debate, a 3-hour debate is not going to change anybody's mind. In fact, what it'll usually serve as is to further entrench and further polarize your current position. So that's one reason that I think they're kind of silly. My third bullet point here, I say no time for real education, which is really the reason. In a debate, in this case, it was roughly 1 hour long. What ends up happening? Well, people just say their talking points, usual superficial talking points. No depth is allowed really because of the time constraint. It's just not a good medium. It's mostly just for entertainment. You can go to CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. You can watch the presidential debates. You've all seen at least one of those things, and you see what a circus it all is, because by design, it is kind of a circus. Nonetheless, I went through with it. Today, I'm going to try to dive just a tad bit deeper on one of the talking points. So hopefully that is a value add for you. And after I get through these slides, I'll try to pick up on some of the questions that you've are jotting down here in the comment section and try to do a Q&A. But please bear with me because I don't have Benny. I don't have that help. And it might be a little bit rough for me to like read through the comments and then bring one up to the stage and go ahead and answer them. And then my last bullet point is something I say is asymmetry. This is something I've been wanting to make a full episode or two or a whole volume of episodes on because it goes really deep. What do I mean by asymmetry? So typically when there are two sides of an issue, there's a symmetry to that, right? I say things, you started it. You know how children are. You started it. No, you started it. No, you started it. And everybody is pointing the finger at each other, and there's this symmetry. I think a lot of truth lies in looking for the asymmetry. And I'm going to tie it all together as to why I don't usually want to do debates. The asymmetry here is in the following form. So I'm sure he's a really nice gentleman. The debate was with somebody that, as far as I know, doesn't have any practical experience as an operator, neither in the youth space or in the professional space. Everything that was said came more from the perspective of a MLS fan, a general sports fan. So you can imagine that a lot of reality isn't really available to a fan, somebody's there who is there for entertainment purposes. Reality usually smacks you in the face when you're an actual practitioner in the domain that you are talking about. So if you've been coaching for a very long time at the youth level, a lot of realities smack you in the face. When you've been operating in the professional arena in some capacity, reality could be smacking you in the face. But it goes further than that, because if you're simply a practitioner in a space, you might not be able to see reality because you're not pushing the envelope. What do I mean by that? I mean, you could be a youth coach for 20 years at a typical club and doing your typical things for 20 years, and you never get up to the edge of what's been done in this country. So you never get to see the blowback from the establishment on you. You don't get to see the gatekeepers at the cutting edge and how they try to gatekeep people out and only allow certain people in. So you need to have that sort of experience to really start seeing the edges of what's possible and what's not being allowed to be possible, if that makes sense. So that is the asymmetry that I'm talking about. So if I'm talking to somebody who's never had any of these experiences and definitely never pioneering at the cutting edge, it's very difficult to get through to somebody because you don't see it. Cool. Let me move on from this first little slide here. If I can, let me see if this works. Do you guys see that? Hopefully you guys see that. So some examples of what is the superficial talking points that the typical pro-establishment and anti-open ecosystem tribe threw out there. Here, I'm just I'll read them out for you, and then I'll dive a little bit deeper. I'm leaving the last one for the deep dive, okay? So let's say things like, we don't have the culture here in the United States, right, to actually have an open ecosystem or to do things that you're suggesting, Gary, or that people actually want. And to that, I mean, it's obviously bullshit. We all know who have been operating in the space. We know it's nonsense. You can even look at all the data points, the evidence stemming back to 1994, which was before MLS, before the monopoly. 1994 was the most highly attended, most successful, lucrative World Cup in history prior to this 2026 one. And it was here in the United States. So the market for soccer is enormous. You can also take a look at all the demand for soccer in this country at the youth level for decades and decades and decades. We have among the highest registered number of players in the youth space in the world. In the world. We have the largest player pool in the world. That's crazy for somebody to say we don't have the soccer culture, we don't have the people that can sustain an open ecosystem. Our second division now, USL, is among the most highly attended second divisions in the world and among the most successful second divisions in the world. Now, people might be tempted to immediately react to that and point at the English Championship, right? The second division of England. Why are you looking at the best second division in the world? Why don't you look at the 150 to 200 other countries in the world that have an open ecosystem and look at their second divisions? Most all of them pale in comparison to what the USL has accomplished with a with a closed ecosystem. So people who say we don't have the culture or we don't have the sustainability, or it's nonsense, guys. We have the most world-class soccer market in the world. That's why international clubs want to play here. That's why FIFA wants to have Club World Cups here. That's why national teams want to play here, because they know we have the culture, we have the disposable income to go and support this sport that we all love. I'm taking a lot of time here, but bear with me again. It says not many markets can sustain a protein. That's usually their argument also. Well, Gary, there aren't that many markets that are. What the fuck do you know if there aren't that many markets? How would you? It's like, are you God, right? This is the problem with central planners, with the typical Marxist communists out there. They have this idea that big daddy government or they themselves can identify correctly what markets actually are good markets, which versus which ones are not. And they are going to dictate, oh, Seattle, you get to have one. Oh, Dallas, you get to have one. Oh, San Diego, you get to have one, so on and so forth. Well, if they knew that those markets were already good, why didn't they helicopter in franchises much, much earlier in the life of MLS? The reality is nobody knows what the market can sustain. That is the beauty of an open ecosystem, a free market and free market capitalism. The market will reveal itself when it's an open playing field with opportunity. Next, we don't do a, okay, maybe some of you guys weren't around this long, but I certainly have been here a very long time. Before MLS had any academies whatsoever, I and a few others were always advocating, hey, we need to have academies. Our pro teams should have academies. The youth should be farmed and developed within youth academies like they do in the rest of the world. And you know the responses that I would get? Gary, you're so stupid. You're so dumb. We don't do that here in the United States. US sports don't work that way. Look at the NFL. They don't have youth academies. Look at Major League Baseball or the NHL or the NBA. None of those enterprises have youth academies. You're so stupid, Gary. We just do sports different here. Youth academies, ha, ha, ha. No, the pipeline is you play high school, you play college, and then we have a draft, and that's how you become a professional. And that's where the cream actually resides. Well, lo and behold, in 2007, right, academies started popping up. MLS recognized, and this goes much deeper than I'm going to do it justice for here, recognize, oh, shit, soccer's different. We need to have our own youth academies. All those people, silent now. And the same thing goes for the international calendar. Maybe some of you guys have been around this long. For years, real soccer people in this country, and we number in the millions, okay? And what I mean by real soccer people, the authentic hardcores, are folks that are not MLS in the MLS demo, that don't support MLS. Those are the real hardcore football people in this country, numbering in the millions again. We would always say, MLS, our first division, should be aligned with the international calendar. Oh, Gary, you're so stupid. All you guys are so dumb. You have no idea what you're talking about. First off, US sports are different here. We don't do that stuff. We don't have to be like South America. We don't have to be like Europe. We don't have to be like the rest of the world. We're special. And by the way, Gary, you're so dumb. What are you going to do with all these cities and states in the northern latitudes? What do you have any idea, Gary, what it's like in Minnesota during the winter, or Toronto or Vancouver or New York, and on and on and on and on? You're so dumb, Gary, so impractical. Get a clue. And you know what? MLS has now decided they're going to the international calendar. Wow. Wow. Why? It just magically did those northern latitude cities, did they magically migrate? Did global warming get to such a point that it's a hospitable environment in Minnesota, Toronto, Vancouver, New York, and on and on and on? Those people, silence now. And it's the same people, the same demographic, because they've all been brainwashed, guys. MLS had been brainwashing them, saying, we don't need academies. MLS had been brainwashing them, and it's media, right? It's puppet media has been brainwashing them. Oh, we don't do international calendar. That's silly. And so they repeat those talking points without really understanding anything. And the latest, of course, is an open ecosystem, promotion, relegation. Oh, you guys are so stupid, you pro-rel zealots. They try to smear us, right? Like we're zealots or something. You don't know what you're talking about. That'll never happen. It's impossible. It's unsustainable, Gary. Nobody will invest, if it's an open ecosystem. Never mind that the rest of the world has proven that false over and over and over again. But they're doing the same playbook. They're just repeating the same talking point that has been given to them. And so this is, guys, why I think doing a debate or doing debates with people like this is a waste of time. What's my last bullet point there? Oh, yeah, players are better now. So in this thing that I did with Filippo on his channel, I brought this up. And again, the non-player characters shout out, oh, no, players are better now. Gary, look, there's so many more players, American players in Europe. We're better, better, better. So I would like to take a little bit of time here to explore that further with you guys. And then after that, we're basically at the Q&A portion of this live stream. Let me check in on the comments really quick to see how we're doing here. I believe that the real problem are the fans for supporting a shit show. No question. Yeah, that's another slander that we get. Open system fundamentalists, right? Well, the thing that we need to do better job of, all of us, and you guys in the audience as well, I'm going to keep repeating it. Every time that you hear promotion and relegation or read the words pro-rel or anybody says it, you need to substitute that with freedom, opportunity, and a meritocracy. Just read the whole thought that they have, the whole sentence, and replace pro-rel by freedom, opportunity, and meritocracy. So from that perspective, yes, I am a fundamentalist, so to speak, because I believe in those three values. And to deny us an open ecosystem is to deny the country, deny every single community, every single practitioner, every single player, every single would-be touch point or current touch point in the ecosystem is to deny them freedom, opportunity, and a meritocracy. So fundamental, yes, it is wrong. This is a moral imperative. I've mentioned it before. I don't care if we end up winning 4 World Cups in a row if the system is closed in the United States. I could care less. And you all might say I'm crazy, and you all might say that's dumb. It doesn't matter because we don't have freedom, opportunity, or meritocracy. It's like saying, I don't know, if I live in People's Republic of China, okay? The CCP is governing everything, and they win World Cups through and through. But you have to live under that rule. Yes, all analogies are flawed, but I'm telling you what, if you're a practitioner, if you're an operator bumping up against the glass ceiling in this country and pioneering things or trying to do good work, exceptional work, remarkable work at the cutting edge, you know what I'm talking about, because that's when Big Daddy Monopoly comes in and either gives you a choice, implicitly or explicitly. I know I speak from experience. And it goes something like this. Kiss the ring, do what we tell you, and we might allow you to continue operating, or one day we might bless you with entry into the tent, entry into the monopoly. But if you don't do that, then good luck. We'll blackball you, we'll systematically destroy you, we'll try to kill your business, whatever your business happens to be. It could be a youth club. How do they destroy a youth club nowadays? Well, they have a monopoly on the top tier of youth soccer. So they'll just select an MLS Next youth club that's your next door neighbor. They'll give them access, even if you deserve it more, objectively deserve it more. And what's going to happen to your youth club then? It systematically, over time, gets eaten alive by the youth club that has the MLS Next patch. All why? Because you didn't kiss the ring and say, okay, sire, I will be a good little boy, obey, not push the envelope, say what you want me to say, and leave the gatekeeping up to you, and hopefully you pick me. That sounds like the CCP. That sounds like living in North Korea. And sure, did I have freedom? Did this scenario, which I know many of across the country that I just gave, have freedom to choose? Yeah, they had freedom to choose between two choices. Come and agree and obey the monopoly, or else. So you have one of those two options. All right, let's go to the next slide here before I go on for way too long here. So I want to dive deeper into one of these talking points that they just throw out there and not really understand, again, because they're not practitioners, they're fans. And this is not to talk shit on fans. I think fans are the lifeblood and the soul of the game. Let's just be clear that there are millions of football fans in the United States that are effectively disenfranchised because they don't have a club to call their own, for real, because they're not allowed to rise and fall in their own merit. They either have to subjugate themselves to their local MLS franchise or have nothing as a fan. But it is true, as a fan, you are not a practitioner. There's a lot of things that are either misunderstood, misinformed, misguided, or just frankly out of the zone of completely in your blind spot. And this is one of them. It's easy for people to think, fans, even practitioners, to think youth soccer is better now. Everything is better now because look, Gary, we have a lot more pro players in Europe. Okay. Do you know why that's the case? I'm going to explore that in a second. But first, this picture that I have up here on the slide. There's two pictures. The first one on the left, 2002 World Cup squad. I think it's a picture from the game before they were playing England in the quarterfinals. Remember, the quarterfinals is the farthest a U.S. men's national team has ever gotten. That's on the left side. And then on the right side, we have the 2026 World Cup team that played against Belgium and lost 4-1. Player for player, who's better? Well, it's not easy to know. It's very difficult to know because you can never play them against each other. So that's kind of off the table. But we have some data to consider and some things to consider. Number one, the team from 2002 got farther than the team from 2026. Yes, one might say, no, Gary, they got the same as far because the 2026 team won their first elimination match and then got eliminated in the second match, which is true, the same as 2002. But the format is different. There's more World Cup teams, as we all know. I think the correct framing, I know the correct framing is you need to compare them relative to their international counterparts during their eras. So the 2002 team, if you look at those players and compare them to their international colleagues during their era, the gap, that existed, and there was a gap, is roughly the same gap that exists between our current 2026 team and their international counterparts. Now, obviously, I can't go player for player and might make a case and an argument for every single player. Otherwise, we'd be here all day and all night. That's something simply for you to consider and try to do for yourselves. It's going to be challenging, especially if you weren't there in 2002. But nevertheless, I think it's an important exercise or an exercise that can offer some sort of insight. Secondly, the argument goes, again, from the pro-establishment side, we have so many more European players doing good in Europe than before. Okay, that is true. Let's explore the situation further. First off, the main guys in our current U.S. men's national team, like a Pulisic, like a McKinney, like a Chris Richards, like an Anthony Robinson, like a who's the guy at Leverkusen? I forget his name. Like name, just think about the top 6, 7 guys who are kind of the main guys. The Serginho Dest, also. They weren't even touched here by American soccer. They weren't really even touched by MLS. None of those guys, Pulisic, especially Anthony Robinson, Serginho Dest, never set foot in a. Well, Pulisic obviously was in the youth system here, but he left when he was 15, 16, all ready to go to Europe. All those guys are Euro-centric players. They did not play MLS. They didn't play. And of the players who got barely grazed by an MLS academy, like a Chris Richards, it's barely a season. If it's even that much, I don't recollect. Barely a season. If you look at somebody like, who's the other one? Weston McKennie at FC Dallas, barely touched by MLS academy. There is no claim of MLS Academy having developed that player or Richards. No chance. And of the ones that were many years in an MLS Academy and then actually played some MLS at the professional level and then ended up leaving, do you know why those guys ended up going to Europe or were allowed to go to Europe, and why we have, and here's the crux of it all, why we have more players in foreign territories than in decades prior? There's several factors. Number one is globalization. The game is a lot more global now in the 2020s than it was in the 90s and in the early 2000s. The internet was a baby that barely didn't even exist. There was no Y-Scout platform in the 90s or the early 2000s where every game of every player was uploaded and scouts could easily do the job. There were no international broadcasts like they were now. There was no X or Instagram or all the dissemination of information back in those days was next to zero. That has a huge influence on the capability of the pipeline being further open for opportunities for players to go overseas. That has nothing to do with the development of football in this country. It has nothing to do with MLS having 30 franchises now versus 20 versus 15, whatever it was in the early days. Completely disjointed. One is a technological advancement that occurred. The other thing that happened, Pulisic did something unprecedented. He went to Germany, age 15, 16, Borussia Dortmund, cracked the first team as a young teenager, 16, 17. I don't remember when his debut was. It's irrelevant. And that thing in and of itself sent massive shockwaves through the United States. Why? Well, it should be self-evident. All youth players that saw that happen and that were at MLS academies or anywhere in the ecosystem here in the States, they said, wow, it's possible. And then McKinney did the same thing shortly thereafter. Wow, it's possible. We can go to Europe. And they were looking at their local MLS franchise and the MLS ecosystem as a whole as a youth player in an MLS academy, perhaps on youth national teams. And they saw what happened to their youth colleagues when they would sign homegrown player contracts here for an MLS franchise. I'll tell you what happened to them. And they all knew it. It was basically a death sentence. You weren't going anywhere. Opportunities were scant to none for a homegrown player, as they call it here, for an MLS franchise. You would rot on the vine. Good luck to you, sir. And you want to play in Europe? Well, that's a complete joke. No chance that you're going to play in Europe. No chance. And there were many stories that kids told kids, and kids that experienced those things, they would tell their counterparts, don't sign a homegrown contract, bro. I regret it. I regret it. I regret it. And many other stories where if there was interest from an overseas club for an MLS homegrown player, MLS would torpedo any chance of a transfer. Many such stories. And guess what would happen? Those players would tell their youth national team buddies, would tell people in their circles, and word gets out, bro, they torpedoed my opportunity, my dream to go overseas. So you know what that culminated in? In 2018 and 2019, and this is a story I've told before, and I'm going to keep telling it until your nose bleeds from this. In 2018, 2019, a couple dozen players, MLS Academy players, said no to signing with the MLS franchise. They said no to signing a USL, contract, because maybe some of these MLS franchises had a second team, right, playing in the USL. They said no to homegrown contracts, and they took their shot overseas, all in the span of 365 days. Let's be a little generous, maybe 18 months, 2 years. I forgot Sargent, by the way. Sargent also neglecting and going overseas. Well, that kicked MLS's ass, right? They had to do something. And they did. They reacted. All of a sudden, they started playing the kids. And all of a sudden, they started allowing a select few, which they gate kept, to get a transfer to Europe. So when these folks who want to debate that things are better now because we have more players in Europe because of the establishment, it's not because of the establishment. It's because the establishment got sucker punched, in the face because of the shit that they were doing. And then for a period of just a couple years, they appeased the situation and allowed some players to go overseas. And it's not that those players are better than their counterparts 20 years ago. They weren't better than Claudio Reyna. They weren't better than John Harkes. They weren't better than Eric Winalda or Kobe Jones or Tony Miller or all those guys. They weren't better. They were just afforded more opportunity now as a consequence of everything I've been describing. And by the way, when MLS was forced to start playing the kids as a consequence of this, in part because of yours truly, I should throw that out there, but not just yours truly, they started realizing that what they believed was true was not true. And that is, Gary, he's just 17. He's not ready for MLS first team football. No chance. He can't play. No way. He needs 3-4 more years. You need to be a grown man already. You need to be a 21, 22, 23-year-old before you can start actually making an impact. They believe this because the general sports fan, which is what they were, and the mental model of those times prior to 2018, 2019, was that, hey, you draft from college, and those guys are already 20, 21, 22, more grown-ass men, more experienced. Then you're a rookie. And then after a year or two, maybe you can make an impact in MLS. Well, that was disproven when they were forced to play the kids. They started playing the kids, and they're like, holy shit, a 17-year-old can actually be good. Yeah, no shit's what I've been telling you fucks forever. But everything that I just described, and there's so much more, I can't get all out in a debate, right? It's just talking point here, talking point there, and repeat over and over and over again over the course of an hour, and it's stupid. Okay, last slide, guys, and then I'll jump into the comments here to see if there's some questions you might have. Oh, yeah, okay, so I'll keep it very short. I don't know if you've seen the latest news, because this is every weekly YouTube live is supposed to be about news, right? Covering something in the news. Well, this is definitely in the news. It's about Mexico a few weeks ago, stating that they're permanently abandoning promotion and relegation, permanently abandoning freedom, opportunity, and a meritocracy. Remember what I said? Which was a massive deception, because in 2020 is when they first, quote unquote, suspended promotion and relegation. And they said they would suspend it for 5 or 6 years only, just to get, the infrastructure all in order and for things to get healthier, and we're going through a rough time, and COVID-19 is here, and it's even more troubling. And guess what? It's been 5 or 6 years, and they said, nope, we're not bringing it back. So the picture you see here is of a second division club, their first team players before a game coming out with a banner saying, we roar for promotion, right? They want to bring promotion relegation back. And this is what I think is important, vital for USL supporters, USL fans, USL players, USL Players Union, USL clubs to also do. They should be banging the drum here more than anybody else to US Soccer and educating the fan base, everybody, that we need to have an open ecosystem, because there's consequences to having a closed one. I listed just a few bullet points here because this is an interesting case study that I encourage more people to be aware of, which, hey, by the way, it's very interesting. Have you guys seen any mainstream American soccer reporters / journalists covering this Mexico news? Because I sure haven't. I sure have not. It's quite telling. So if I look at my bullet points here, there's some empirical data about the effects of having closed the ecosystem down in Mexico in 2020. Attendance in the second division clubs is down 29%. The club's roster value, meaning the player value, the values of the players on second division teams now in Mexico, has now declined roughly 33%. Players' salaries are now down. Again, I have to remind you, I'm not speaking simply from a research article or from stuff one reads online or in theory. I'm a practitioner in the space. I actually have players playing professional in Mexico. I'm aware of this sort of stuff on things that aren't made known in the media. And then the last bullet point is the most important one. It's not like the other ones aren't important. Obviously, the other ones are important, but there's no incentive now for the owners of second division clubs or communities or players or anybody to invest in the second division club. Why would they build out infrastructure in the second division, invest a ton of capital, money, incur losses while you're investing, if there is no potential unlocking of the pot of gold on the other side of the rainbow? There is nothing to play for. There's no economic incentive to do such a thing. And guess what? The same holds true here in the United States. What is the incentive for USL Championship, USL League One, League Two, so on and so forth, to invest massive amounts of capital to build out? It's very minimal incentive versus if the system was open. And people want to say, oh, Gary, it's unsustainable. Look, the Oakland Roots can't even pay their lease in the USL Championship now. And you want an open ecosystem? Bro, if there was an open ecosystem, it's not like the ecosystem is frozen in time and the Oakland Roots will still be the Oakland Roots that you see today. A wealthy, extremely wealthy person or a consortium of wealthy people or a private equity firm or Jeff Bezos or whoever that want to be in football, that want to have this asset, could easily come in and say, hey, current owners of Oakland Roots, we'll infuse capital for this percentage equity. Or we'll just buy you outright what's the price, Oakland Roots? What's the price? We'll buy it from you. Then they won't have any lease problems. They'll build out their own thing. Do you think the San Antonio FC in the USL Championship, who is owned by the San Antonio Spurs, do you think they don't have the wherewithal to build a bigger stadium, to build out their academy if they so chose, to build out all of the infrastructure to make it look or have the same or even more capacity and capability of an existing MLS franchise? Do you think the San Antonio Spurs can't do that? Of course they can do that. Why don't they do it then, Gary? Well, because there's no reward at the end of the tunnel. You can't win USL Championship and go up and compete in the big Division I stage. Are we starting to understand this? Is it starting to click? Why would a USL Championship, or in this case, the second division of Mexico, an owner, why would they go out of their way to pay high salaries? There's no return, no potential return. Why would they invest heavily and build out a scouting department to scour, the province, the state, the country for talent? You're going to invest a shit ton in scouting and recruiting? What for? There's no reward at the end of the rainbow. Hopefully this makes sense, guys. Okay, I'll end the rant there. Man, I didn't think I was capable of going 44 minutes, 45 minutes solo. Is this a good format? Did you guys enjoy this? I'd like some sort of feedback here. And if you're critical, that's cool too, man. I take criticism, constructive criticism, not the trolling kind, to heart, and I do try to improve. Let's see if we have some questions or thoughts here I can address. Gosh, let me see. So there's not too much silence here. Debates are performative. They determine nothing in reality. Absolutely, totally true. Totally true. Imagine debating, I don't know. I always talk about this because it's what my training is in. My professional training is in physics, in mathematics. I'm a scientist / engineer at heart. I still work in the space quite considerably. I was an actual engineer for the better part of 6 years, designing and analyzing spacecraft communication systems at Boeing by LAX for a long period of time. Imagine if somebody reached out to me saying, hey, Gary, I want to debate, I don't know, let's debate quantum mechanics, okay? And the guy that I'm going to have you debate on quantum mechanics is such and such, and that person is not a trained physicist, not a mathematician, has absolutely no clue about physics aside from maybe reading superficial popularized science books, that there's no equations in there, it's all words, and they want to debate with me on wave function collapse or the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics. It's dumb. It's really quite stupid. So yeah, it would be purely performative. I agree with you. Any questions? I'm looking for a question mark here as I scan over these things. If I don't see a question mark, I think I'm unfortunately just going to pass you over. We need a 343 to start a Discord server. I thought about a Discord server or online forums or something of that nature. I've never gotten around to it, but maybe. No question marks, huh? Oh, maybe some of you guys are asking questions, but not with a question mark. So I apologize in advance. I need glasses, man. I'm getting old. Things are looking a little. I'm seeing double. Shit, freaking like 50, 60 comments here. No questions. Watching the Wrexham documentary has been more fun than any MLS game. Well, MLS is just an exhibition league. That's really what it is. It's all exhibition. It's not really a competition. Okay, finally, question. Hey, Gary, what's your thoughts on the America Champions League? What the heck is the America Champions League? Are you talking about CONCACAF Champions League, I presume? I think that is one of the few times where you actually see a competition that MLS teams are involved in, because they're not they're not playing their own within their own club. See, guys, MLS teams are just geographically separated offices of the one single club that is MLS. It's intra-squad scrimmages, basically, when MLS plays MLS. So when MLS plays against Mexican teams or Central American teams, then it's an action. Then that is an actual competition. That is real. That is authentic. That is genuine. What about CONCACAF and CONMEBOL making a super league? I mean, okay, fine. Sure, why not? I'll give us a few more minutes here and see if you have any questions. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and sign off. Hopefully, this was pretty cool. I actually kind of enjoyed myself, if I'm being honest. Do you have a strong opinion? Here, let me see if I can bring. Benny showed me how to bring comments up to. There it is. Okay. Do you have a strong opinion on the logistics of the formation of the First Division League here in the US? Number of teams, need for conferences, economic requirements for teams. I don't have a strong opinion. Do whatever you want. I could care less. We can structure it however anybody wants it. You want to make a 20-team First Division? Fine. You want to make a 30-team First Division? Fine. You want to separate the 30-team First Division into East and West? Fine. Whatever you want to do, I'm okay with it. So long as it's an open ecosystem and second division teams that win the second division get promoted and the losers of the first division get demoted. All the other logistics, whether you want to regionalize the third division because of travel expenses or something, I don't care. It doesn't matter. All of those things are details, okay? And I can hear them already. Oh, but the devil's in the details, Gary. It doesn't fucking matter. You fucking work it out. It's not a big deal. What should be the requirements to be promoted in the first division? I don't care either. You can just do something reasonable. What is reasonable? Well, I should remind you that there is this thing called the professional league standards that kind of have some requirements associated with what a first division league needs to have, what a second division league needs to have. But the most important thing I want to communicate today is that document, those professional league standards, the goalposts on it conveniently have been moving over the course of the years and decades. And they conveniently move the goalposts such that MLS would de facto comply with them because they already kind of did. And then it makes it more difficult for any would-be competitor to MLS to qualify. But if we can have some sort of standardization, no problem. Just make it publicly known. And now everybody in the ecosystem knows what it takes to get promoted to a particular division. If you require a 10,000 stadium to compete in the first division, and that's a hard requirement, otherwise you can't get promoted, fine. Put it in black and white, and then we'll see the San Antonio Spurs, or we'll see the Sacramento FCs of the world, or we'll see Charlotte, or all these clubs, either their current ownership or would-be purchasers of those clubs, mobilize themselves to make that a reality. What else do we have here? How do you think we can, here, I need to bring this up here. How do you think we can use the public high school system and even the private school system to develop identify or identity in players and produce players who can play high level, an ecosystem with high school. I mean, sure. I don't have that many comments about it. I've coached high school. Brian has also coached high school. Brian actually won a CIF championship with his high school team when he was coaching high school 20 freaking years ago or whenever it was. I mean, I think high school in large part suffers the same thing that college suffers from, and that is a short season. So from a development standpoint, I don't think there's a lot of developmental value associated with high school and college soccer, and the reason being the longevity of the season, for one. Um, but look, I'm open to any avenue. I just know for a fact that high school soccer is a lot lower level than the equivalent club soccer circuit at those relevant ages. So for those club or high school players to actually be high level, it's very unlikely, unfortunately. And that's just my truth. I'll make my prior point about Japan a question. Is the easiest apples to apples comparison from a timeline perspective and game status perspective the MLS versus the J League? I mean, potentially. I want to be very cautious here. I deeply understand the American soccer system because I've worked in it forever and deeply immersed in it. I don't have expertise in the J League. So just like I think almost nobody has that expertise or expertise in both to actually make an apples to apples comparison. But I see the correlation here because the J League started, maybe you guys can figure this out right now live. The J League started roughly around the same time MLS started, and yet they've had promotion relegation for a very long time already. And it's no secret that even people here in the United States have admitted or recognized that the Japanese player is further along than the American player. And what I mean by that, more specifically, is the Japanese player developed in Japan in that system compared to the American player developed in the American system. So you have to throw out Serginho Dest, Anthony Robinson, all the Euro guys, right? You got to take them out of the equation if you want to do an apples to apples comparison. But yeah, there is no question that the J League is more competitive than MLS. That's a whole other episode as to what competitive actually means. Competitive does not mean parity. It doesn't mean that anybody can win on any given day. Competitive means that the intensity, the effort with which a player, a coach, a club, a technical staff, the whole institution, the intensity with which it has to operate is at a maximum. Versus here, it doesn't fucking matter. It's funny what's in the news this past week too. A lot of MLS franchise fan bases are complaining, like LAFC's fan base is complaining, oh, get the coach Marco Dos Santos out of here. He should be fired. He's terrible, blah, blah, blah. John Thorrington, which is the president of LAFC, is a disaster, giving jobs just to friends and doesn't really care. We've signed nobody. We're not a great team anymore. And these people don't recognize it doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter. Win, lose, or draw, it doesn't matter. Complain your face off, it doesn't matter. And the players know it. The players operate at 60, 70, 80% by comparison to their international counterparts in open ecosystems where they're going 100% every training session and every match and every fixture. So, I think it's a fair point. Rangers king to compare it to the J League. Okay, just a couple more, guys. We're heading up on the hour mark. Usually I want to keep them to an hour. Do you think using MLS Next to your advantage is by signing your kid up for it only in the 11th year in high school, since colleges can't even look at you until that year? You're talking about the junior year of high school? I imagine junior year. Do you think system changes if we adapt? I don't know what that means. Look, I think there's two things regarding MLS Next. There's playing for an MLS Next team that is non MLS, and then there's an MLS Next team that is part of an MLS Academy. Worlds apart insofar as whether your kid will now be effectively owned without them knowing it. If you join an MLS Academy, you are effectively owned by that MLS Academy. You will not be able to just do whatever you want. If your kid has true pro player potential, guess what? You're owned already. You have no choice. But I think that's beside your point. You're talking about colleges. Look, the reality is the reality. The colleges are really just looking at the top tier of youth soccer. Um, and the earlier you're recognized, the better. So maybe the 11th year, your junior year, is already a little bit too late. You probably want to hop on board earlier than that, but eyes wide open. So I would just say, as soon as you're like a freshman, you should probably hop on board. So roughly when you're 13, 14, jump on board. If you're 15, jump on board as well. If you wait till you're 16, yeah, it's fine, but it's a little bit more challenging. I don't know if that helps. Hi, Gary. I had a quick question for you. What does it take for a player, or how does a player get in contact with you for representation? Look, man, I feel the struggle. It's tough, dude. It's tough because, man, this is volumes of an explanation. I get pinged constantly with this sort of stuff, and people send me videos, and it's just too much for me to filter through. And this is the main struggle also of not having an open ecosystem, because what ends up happening is somebody like me, or even established agencies and agents, or people who want to get into this business, or even people who want to just recruit for their academy teams or college. Unfortunately, since time is such a factor and energy is limited, you just look at the youth national teams, or you just look at the MLS academy teams. If you go further than that, you're a hero, and you have a lot of time, energy on your hands. So it's tough, man. It's tough. Like, look, all you have to do is just Google me, and then I'm sure our contact at thirdpostinternational.com will show up. You can just email me there. But I'm just telling you, I get bombarded with this stuff. And even with videos, it's hard to tell whether a player is legit or not. I'll say one more thing. If the player is not super legit, there is nothing in it for somebody to represent the player. There's no money in that business. There just isn't. There's only money in that business when a pro player cracks it at the top level. So once you like really crack it, then that makes economic sense for you to actually be doing all of the work involved in representing a player. If a player is a pro and doesn't crack it and is just lingering as a typical MLS player or a USL player, or playing in Europe or in Mexico, and it's just like mid-tier, low tier, but they're pros, it doesn't make economic sense to do that labor. So fuck, man, I wish I had better news than that, but you can go ahead and try and shoot me an email. But I'm telling you right now, man, unless my mind is blown beyond belief, my energy is going to be allocated elsewhere. I can defer you maybe. There are people who are willing to do that legwork, even though there's like nothing in it for you. Actually, it's worse than nothing, because you're deploying all kinds of capital, time, energy, and effort for not just nothing in return, for a massive headache in return. This is just the reality. Let's see, what else is there? Guys, just a few more. I'm so sorry here. I wish I can get to all of them. I think the questions are preserved here, though, so maybe I can revisit them later with with Benny. Let's see if there's another one here. Do you think this country is confused on their identity, or rather don't know how to bring it out of a player, of players and teams? Do you think coaches here know how to bring out players' full potential? I don't think this country even knows what an identity, a real footballing identity is. I don't think it is. They know. Um, but I'll tell you one thing. If you look at the fans in the stadium of the U.S. men's national team or an MLS team, that gives you an indication of what the quote unquote identity of soccer in this country is. And it's not a pretty sight. It's soft, it's apologetic, it's non demanding, it's, I don't know. I don't know. That's our identity. And if you look at the players on the field, they reflect a lot of those sorts of values. Do you think coaches here know how to bring out players' full potential? In general, no, because coaches here aren't incentivized to do that. They might think that they're trying to do that, but I don't think they've ever felt, um, or rather, I think the bigger incentive that they have by far is making sure that nobody fires them, or is trying to prevent headaches, right? And if we're talking youth, they're trying to prevent the headache of the parents complaining because those are the paying customers. So if you're appeasing that demographic, then guess what? You're not trying to fulfill every player's potential, because that will cause you a heck of a lot of headaches. And to boot, it's almost an impossible thing to do. It's a very difficult thing to do, and you're not getting paid enough to go down that path. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. I think I'll wrap it up right there. I'm sorry if I didn't get to your question. Hopefully it gets preserved here. I'll have Benny resurface some of them maybe next week, or maybe during our non-live recording at 5 p.m. It would be cool if I knew a little bit more as to whether you enjoyed this solo chat that I had with all of you. If so, I'll go ahead and proceed with doing the same thing once in a while. Until next time, peace.